Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double A Team Podcast live stream edition. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. With me, as always, is my co-host from the Awful Announcing, the associate editor, Ken Fang. And Ken, we still have one or two more games left on this Week 11 NFL schedule, and it's becoming more and more apparent that our two teams that we root for dearly, just isn't giving us much hope or enjoyment, week in and week out. But let's
Yeah,
start from there, unfortunately. And I'm going to start with my team, the Bears. We had a pretty eventful week this past week. It started with the firing of embattled offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. And, it was basically pretty much, like a scapegoat, like a Hail Mary move made by Matt Eberflus, who's, even on a shakier grounds, even with the firing of Eberflus and Shane Waldron, and the subsequent, promotion of Thomas Brown, the passing game coordinator. And not much was really expected out of this game. I think the fans were kind of resigned that they were going to see the Bears get their ass blown off, like we have seen, a decade ago under Mark Trestman when the Bears lost like 55-14 on a Sunday night. And yet nothing happened, even with and then a week before, of course, that was the game that the Patriots also put a 50 points on the Bears. And Lamar Houston tearing his ACL after celebrating a meaningless sack with the game already determined. That's how bad it was that season. And now, a decade later, we're seeing the same thing, playing out. And, I don't think that many people were all that excited. But I saw a tremendous difference between what the offense between Shane Waldron and what Thomas Brown was calling. Basically, it's the same playbook, of course. You can't just tear everything up and draw up a new play with only about 8 weeks left in the season. That's just not possible. And I think a lot of people were going to point a finger at Thomas Brown, of course, being a passing game coordinator, that he's also somewhat culpable. Maybe less than the offensive coordinator Shane Waldron, but he was still on the staff. And
right.
that we weren't really expecting all that much out of this, but we saw a significant difference. I think I saw the game from B-Dubs nearby and from the start, and it was quite apparent. The ball was being released much faster, even with the shoddy offensive line that the Bears still have. It was noticeably different. He got the ball quickly. He took what the defense gave him. Whoever was open, he threw it. I didn't see him too many attempting like a hero ball or just making some dumb decisions, holding onto the ball too often. At times, he took off the ball, and then he was at least like maybe a leading rusher at one point in the game. Nobody's going to confuse Caleb Williams to be like the Justin Fields last year whenever he took off and made some big plays with his legs. But what I saw was very, very encouraging. And you want to see more of that, because I don't want to see Caleb getting beat up holding on to the ball. And for him to use the leg more to gain critical first downs, that was pretty evident. All the runs that we saw, a lot of them, turned out to be a first down gains, extending the plays. And that was very, very encouraging. The Bears actually took the lead at halftime. They had the ball to start the second half, and that was also encouraging. That's when I kind of started to feel a little bit uneasy, because they had to settle for a field goal to make it 13-7. The Packers marched down the field and scored. It was 14-13. The Bears scored late in the third quarter on a DeAndre Swift run. that broke their safety Xavier McKinney's leg. You saw him frustrated, slamming the helmet, and also the Microsoft Surface tablet in anger because he was the last guy on the defense to make that stop. But then, the Bears defense just completely crapped the bed, for the lack of better terms, all day today. Just really no pass rush whatsoever. If Jordan Love was actually a little more consistent, he would have probably put more touchdowns on the board today. But, they had some nice 3 and outs, but overall there was no, pass rush to speak of. And the Bears secondary was beaten pretty badly. On that last touchdown that the Packers score, Christian Watson looked like he may have got the ball, hit the ground, and it may have, caught it with the ground. And then he just got up and just ran another 20, 25 yards before they finally tackle him near the 10-yard line. They scored it quickly. That last drive is the one that really pisses me off, as well as the many Bears players. Okay, on 4th and 3, Caleb made a great throw on the back shoulder to Rome Odunze, and then follow up with another big throw to Keenan Allen to the 30-yard line. That's where the ball was. They had 46 seconds to go with 1 timeout. They only get 2 yards, okay? And then just let the clock run down to about 3 seconds. Right. Then Cairo Santos got his field goal block because of the low trajectory of the kick that he's known for. And then there were some, questionable decisions on that block field goal, because I think the Packers players were jumping over the long snapper, which I think is a rule by rule that's not allowed. Which I don't know if what is the point of the rule, and if that was properly being enforced in times like this. And I'm not trying to be a sour grape, because I'm more upset with Matt Eberflus's decision on that last play, trying to not to lose. Okay, he doesn't coach the game to not to win, but he finds ways to lose and tries to spin it by finding a silver lining or find a positive that is sounding more and more like tone deaf and just out of touch, with every loss nowadays.
Well, Stephen, there was an opportunity again. And again, this goes down to coaching. And I know if we had Amy Trask on here, she would talk about coaching. There was a point where you have an opportunity to get closer, but then the Bears just chose to stay where they are and have a longer field goal. You have an opportunity to gain yardage. You have an opportunity you have time on the clock to make sure you have a running play to get maybe 5 more yards. But Matt Eberflus chose not to do that. He just chose, okay, we're 48 yards away. Let's just stay where we are. We have a good kicker, but no, you have an opportunity to get closer. You have an opportunity to get a better position. It's like the Washington game where there was that opportunity before the Hail Mary to stop the play ahead of it, instead of not covering the sideline, and having to play the middle of the field. Instead, Matt Eberflus chose in this case, Stephen, not to get closer. You have 3 opportunities to get closer, but instead it's like almost a kneel down and saying, okay, we'll just stay where we are. What is going? I mean, I'm angry for you. I'm not a Bears fan, Stephen, but I'm angry for you. There was plenty of opportunities for Matt Eberflus to get a better position for a better kick, but that's where you are. And then, of course, that allows it's a lower trajectory kick from where they were, and then that allows. And of course, you can talk about whether the Packers ran over or jumped over the line. But the fact is, it gave them an opportunity to block the kick, kind of similar to what Kansas City did to Denver last week. But what's interesting, Stephen? As I'm watching Red Zone earlier today, and I'm watching that kick, I'm thinking, you know what? It would just be typical for the Bears to have this kick blocked, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Bears fans were, now kind of gotten used to or become more immune to the losses like this now. And it's just becoming, that, Matt Eberflus is just not a good coach on any given moment. You're supposed to find ways to win, not to lose. Okay. Scary money makes no money, as people would like to say. And, today's loss kind of like exposed two major flaws in Eberflus's, coaching philosophy, or whatever you want to call it. Not just as a coach, but maybe as a human being too, if I'm being honest here. Number one, okay, firing Shane Waldron kind of exposed the whole disastrous process in which you led to his hiring. First and foremost, I think if you're the Bears fans, we all know that Trace Armstrong, who is the former Bears defensive end and also former NFL Players Association president. He is also the certified NFL agent, represents many, many top coaching candidates and also, front office candidates. Okay. I know there's a point about maybe, cronyism about these types of hiring, because all three men that I just mentioned, Matt Eberflus, general manager Ryan Poles, and Shane Waldron, who is canned, were all represented by Armstrong himself. Now, you cannot skirt away, because if you're going to hire a next candidate, whether it's the head coach or the general manager altogether, you cannot avoid that, it is an Armstrong candidate. And you got just burned by the whole Matt Eberflus experience. Okay, you have to just hire the right people, and that candidate more than likely is represented by, ironically, former Bear Trace Armstrong, and that fact cannot be overlooked. And that the problem was, Thomas Brown looked much better as a play caller in his very first game with the Bears than Shane Waldron ever did in his 9 games with the Chicago Bears. So the flawed process in hiring Waldron to lead the offense, I think you're going to have a serious question as to, how in the world did the Bears, with all the extensive process in hiring and interviewing all the candidates, and ironically, Brown was actually even interviewed for the OC position, which went to Shane Waldron. Why wasn't Thomas Brown wasn't hired, and instead we settled for Shane Waldron and having to deal with this mess in the first place? And then the second thing, of course, is that Matt Eberflus's philosophy, that really goes beyond just tone deaf. And I can't say this enough about this man with his explanation on the what happened on that 4th down play. It just makes me question that, if his explanation is that the Packers were, condensed in the middle of the line of scrimmage, okay, on that last play. And so that he was basically scared of losing yards or maybe losing balls or whatever. He just doesn't trust his players. He's just basically putting it on the players again and saying, I don't trust you to do anything with this, on the last play, or even to gain a couple more yards to put it in a much better position. That is a serious indictment on a coach who has problems with the lack of accountability, which I've been harping since what happened with the Redskins the Commanders Hail Mary game, which he skirted away and then eventually had to take accountability more seriously. But again, the comments that he made on that final drive to settle for that field goal rather than getting more yards screams that this man just does not get it, and that he's always finding an excuse, and then he just doesn't seem to really have that mentality of winning, that you need to win ball games. You have to find a ways to win. Don't settle for a loss and say, hey, we fought together, we fought till the very end. I don't want to hear no crap about you fought till the very end. In a league where, or in a sport that wins and losses matters more than ever, especially at this time of the year. When you're talking about that kind of crap, which I've heard so many, moral victories, even, from, other coaches that, who have coached the Bears and eventually ended up getting fired. This is becoming eerie similar to that toward the end of every coaches who eventually got their fired. And, in a perfect world, losing to the Packers again, when you're 0-5 against the Packers, you're 3-24 in the last, God, who knows, for the last 13, 14, 15 years, there has to be some sort of an accountability coming. And yet somehow our general manager, Ryan Poles, is so in love with this dumbass. And his head is so deep up in Matt Eberflus's what. And it just seems like, though, Ryan Poles is looking more and more like he's going down with this idiot of a coach that he brought back. And, at this point, if both men goes out of the door because team president Kevin Warren decides that he wants to start over again while he has trouble securing the finances and the sites for the stadium, and it becomes more and more frustrating and the fans become more and more angry towards him, then they can probably fire him, both men, as a way of skirting or get the heat off of him. So it is a frustrating dysfunction that I'm witnessing as season comes down to as the season starts to wind down.
Yeah, and I just see that right now, Stephen, there was optimism, especially going into the London game and after the London game, because the Bears had played so well and Caleb Williams was doing so well. And then it was Washington. It was Washington and as you mentioned, that was after that game, Stephen, and we talked about it. We said that would probably set the Bears back, and it absolutely has done that. The Bears have shown some life, and especially today when they were ahead and up on the Packers. However, there are times, and as Bill Parcells used to say, Stephen, you are what you are. And, you can say,
wise, yes. Yes.
You could bet you could always say that, hey, we're the best 2-11 team, but you know what? You're 2-11 or whatever your record you are right now.
Exactly.
You're just not getting the job done. And it's all, and as Amy Trask would say on her What the Football podcast, and she said it also on that other pregame show, especially about badly coached teams, it's coaching. And if you're not going to getting the job done, you have to look at the coach, and you're not prepared for every situation. And this is what we're seeing. Matt Eberflus, and I'd say this, and I said this about a lot of a lot of head coaches. Some head coaches are great coordinators, but when they come, but they're not great. They're not great head coaches. They're good. They're good coordinators, or they're not good head coaches. And Matt Eberflus has shown us time and time again, Stephen, that he's probably a good coordinator, but he's not head coaching material. And we've seen it time and time again. And yet, Ryan Poles and the Bears management just don't seem to want to do anything at this point, and just seem to put up with it. And they're just going to lead to a lot of fan apathy right now, despite the fact that the Bears have a great fan base. They deserve much better than this.
Yeah. And, keeping him until the very end of the season, which seems to be, becoming more and more reality, does nothing. It just makes it more excruciating for the Bears to, lose. I'm going to play a clip on the, the Barroom Network. Our old friend Aldo Gandia has posted on his post game after today's loss. Take a listen.
From the onset of the week, start of the week, obviously made the change at offensive coordinator. Was really pleased how the operation of that week went in terms of the collaboration with the offensive staff and the players. And I think that showed today. Communication during the game was great. Guys are finding answers to move the ball, and they did a nice job of that. I thought Thomas Brown did a wonderful job of bringing that collaboration together. And then the quarterback Caleb, I thought played really well. He played well today, played winning football. The drive that they had there and the completions he made to put us in field goal range, I thought were outstanding. The two plays to Rome, and then also the play to Keenan. That's real football there and against a division rival, and did a really nice job putting us in position there. The team played complementary football. The defense had some good stops, had a stop and downs in the red zone, had an interception down there, and also stopped a 2-point conversion, which put us in position to win the game at the end. Again, in terms of the operation there from the 30, we ran the ball one time, tried to get a few more yards right there. We felt good in terms of where the kick line was. The wind was not a factor today, and Cairo's made a bunch of those kicks inside of that range, and we feel confident in Cairo and confident in our operation there. Again, I got to look at the tape. I don't know exactly what happened in terms of the block, but feel good about where that was. So again, I know disappointing, and we should have had a walk-off field goal win there. And again, that didn't happen. And we just got to look at the operation there at the very end. But I was proud of the guys, the way they battled. I thought they played good competitive football today. And, the guys looked at each other in the eye in the locker room when we broke it down. And we're going to keep battling, keep fighting. And we got a division opponent coming here next week. So that's where it is. And it takes true strength and true courage, I told them. And, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And that's where it's at right now. And we just got to get back to work. Once we look at the tape, make the corrections because there was good, of course, in every performance. And there were some things we got to clean up in every performance. And we got to move to the next one after we do that. So I'll take questions.
See, that last part, I apologize. That last part, he says, tough times don't last, tough people do, is as tone deaf of a statement as you can hear, because the tough times is caused by his coaching, and it's not getting any better at all. Even as as he is in his third year, and it seems to be regressing badly. He is 13 and 30 now, 13 and 31. I forgot what the record was, but it is pretty bad. 0-5 against the Packers, as I mentioned earlier, and you still have 5 more divisional games. And the Bears would be lucky at this point that maybe if they can win 1 or 2 more games, 3 might be a little bit of a stretch at this point, even if the offense continues to show progress. But the real concern right now is his defense, his bread and butter. The defense was completely atrocious today. As I mentioned earlier, no pass rush. The run defense minus their nose tackle, Andrew Billings, has completely gone off the rails. Tackling has been a massive problems under Eberflus, he gives credit to the complementary football, which is a total BS, because complementary means you have to have offense, defense, and special teams all play great. And then at least one of them, ironically, the unit that was been a massive problem under Shane Waldron, with a change in the OC, look much better, while your defense crapped the bed, and then a special team might have caused a major problems because you just gave up a big clue as to how to maybe block or force Cairo Santos to either miss a field goal or block a field goal moving forward, because of the low trajectory kicks. And then that's been kind of out there for quite a while, because Santos has had some kicks either miss, or his kicks have been awfully close to barely making it. So that's another problem that the Bears will have to fix now. And listening to that tone deaf statement about the tough times don't last, tough people do, I'm sorry. Those are the types of statements that makes you really, really want to become apathetic toward the Bears, and also give up on, your coach and the season as a whole,
Right. Well, I feel for you, Steven. I mean, you lose it. That's like the Denver Broncos did against Kansas City. It's the toughest way to lose. You think you're going to have a chance to win the game. You think that, you're going to be there, and there's an opportunity to get a big win in the division. This would lift you up. It would not necessarily take the bad taste away from the Washington game, but at least gives you a season highlight, defeating your bitter rival. But instead, when you lose like that, Steven, and like you said, it exposes a lot of things that went wrong. It exposes a lot of things, and instead of celebrating a win, you're talking about a loss that really leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and is going to be again another week of what's going to happen with the Chicago Bears, what's going to happen with Matt Eberflus, and there's going to be a lot of speculation about when is Matt Eberflus going to be let go. So it's just going to, winning hides a lot of things. It makes a lot of things in your front office better. It makes a lot of things in the locker room better. But when you lose like that, Steven, especially the way that the Bears have lost in the last couple of weeks, dating back to Washington, it's going to get a lot worse. And there's going to be a lot of finger pointing. There's going to be a lot of leaks as reporters looking for content and news. And it's just going to get a lot worse. And in a city that loves its Bears, in a city that sports radio is going to be talking a lot about this over the next week, Stephen. If you thought last week was really bad with fans yelling at sports radio, I can only imagine how it's going to be this upcoming week on 670 The Score and on all the other internet talk shows
Chicago as well. And I'm going to end this on this note. This is kind of like the reverse of what happened with Washington. Okay, the whole lack of accountability, and then the crumbling and the grumbling started because we know that the Eberflus defense gave up an easy completion that went over 10 yards with about 2 seconds to go because they didn't do a good job of covering the sidelines. And then at least that gave them an extra yardage, which Eberflus says that play didn't matter. Okay. Now, with today's loss, with the Bears at the 30-yard line with 46 seconds to go, they basically said, we don't think you can do the job, or we don't think you can get the yardage. It doesn't matter whether we get 2 yards or 5 yards or 10 yards. It doesn't matter anyway. So that's just like a complete opposite of what happened with the Redskins against, the Commanders game, where defense, but they lost because Eberflus didn't think highly enough of their defense, whereas Eberflus didn't think enough about the offense, even though it was basically saving him throughout the game. And, I can only imagine what the Bears offensive players are feeling right now when the Bears head coach says, we don't trust you to, gain extra yardage. And then because he was more preoccupied and worried about, fumbles or sacks or whatever. So, I can only imagine things are just, the level of frustration is near the boiling point right now, if not already. So it will only going to get worse to hear from this on out, and it will only be a matter of time if the management can come to their senses and just basically move on or not. Or I'm just worried that Ryan Poles has basically told that you can fire Eberflus and hire another coach, but you got to let him stay until the very end of the season or whatever. So I do worry about that kind of thing being mentioned moving out because of the irreparable damage that Caleb Williams and the Bears fans will have to suffer until the very end of the season. All right, let's move on to your Cleveland Browns, Ken. I saw a little bits of piece in here. And, you lose to the New Orleans Saints, who are shockingly, they're 2-0 under new interim coach Darren Rizzi, the special teams coach, surprisingly. And, I just wish that, my team, the Bears, had that kind of gumption to make the head coaching change to, galvanize the team, because we saw the offense galvanized under, Thomas Brown. And I can only imagine what a head coaching change would do. And the Saints certainly are proving that. And, it was just kind of, a bad scene from the get-go. You saw the game firsthand. And give me your overall impression of the game and what went wrong today for the Browns.
Let's just put it this way, Stephen. This is you have an 89-yard pass to Jerry Jeudy, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go for a 2-point conversion with Jameis Winston, and he gets called for intentional grounding. So you get that's the high and the low, and that's just typical of the Browns. And then when you allow Taysom Hill to run loose all over the field for 3 touchdowns and don't even bother tackling him, you just say, okay, you're just going to run. Let's let you run loose in the secondary and just not tackle. That just shows you just the players just don't care anymore, Steven. I didn't expect much from this game. I knew even though New Orleans had come in with and as you had mentioned had their issues, but ever since they got rid of the head coach and actually interestingly enough, Amy Trask mentioned on her podcast What the Football with Susie Schuster, the fact that she had a very bad experience with him in Oakland and didn't expect much of him in New Orleans and hoped that he had changed, but apparently had not. So maybe that firing was good for the Saints, and apparently has been because they're now 2-0 and they're playing hard and they have some imagination on offense. Whereas the Browns showed absolutely nothing today, even though there was a point where there was 14-14 and you're thinking, and I'm thinking, well, there's a chance here. But then after Taysom Hill was again allowed to run wild through the defense in the second half, I'm just wondering what the heck was going on. Were the Browns not told that Taysom Hill is a running quarterback? Because we all know that they have special plays for the Saints for Taysom Hill. He's known as a receiver sometimes. He's also can be a running back. But for some reason, the Browns just didn't seem to think that, oh, well, when Taysom Hill runs, we can tackle him. No, they just said that we're going to let him run wild. And he runs for 3 touchdowns. I have no idea what the Browns were doing today, Steven. I just am exasperated by this team. I know that Kevin Stefanski, I mean, he's a good coach. He's shown this before. He's a playoff coach. But, right now with this team in disarray, Jameis Winston, after showing us some potential in one game, he's regressed again, throwing some very poor passes, making bad decisions out there. I don't know, Steven. I just didn't expect much in this game today. When they got tied at 14, I just said I just didn't think that there was going to be. I had no optimism that they were going to show anything after they tied the game, and they didn't. And once they fell behind, it just seems like, sometimes you see body language, Steven. And when the Browns went behind, even though they were down 1 score, you could just see the air fall out of the balloon. And after that, it was all done after that. So and especially with the Browns, they're going to have a short week. They're going to have to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised if Al Michaels decides to leave the game in the first quarter and go to get his private plane and just leave and just allow Kirk Street to call the game after that, because I'm sure the Steelers will be up by like 20-0 in the first half, in the first quarter. And Al Michaels says, okay, I'm done. I did my bets. I'm going to leave and I'm going to take off. Kirk, you call the rest of the game. You have your dog Peter here. Just talk about your dog Peter, and just we'll if whatever Amazon wants to do, if they want to play music over the game, just go right ahead and let them do that, because I have no optimism about how the Browns are going to be playing. The Steelers had an emotional game, played a great game against the Baltimore Ravens, a division game. They had their typical tremendous rivalry game, and the Steelers won again, the 5th consecutive time they beat the Ravens. And then they're going to come into Cleveland's home right now on Thursday. And I know they're going to talk about how this could be a trap game, but I have no optimism that the Browns can show up and do anything against the Steelers, especially how the Steelers seem to have found their footing with Russell Wilson. So, I'm seeing nothing, Steven. I'm pretty much right now, I'm dead inside as a Browns fan. After what we've seen the last few weeks, and I have no optimism and no hope about this team's hope against the Steelers. They'll probably keep it close for a while, but then the Steelers will find a way and then pull away at the end. So anyway, that's all I have to say about this game. That's all I have to say about it, because basically I'm numb. I all my body parts have shut down, Steven. My kidneys shut down. My legs shut down. I think at one point all of my veins in my legs just shut down because of this team. I have nothing good to say about it, and the effort showed about how this team just didn't seem to care, especially after the Saints went up on them after being tied 14-14. The effort wasn't there. They just didn't care, and that's all I have to say.
So I'm going to point out this interesting tweet from Josina Anderson talking about some of the coaches and GMs who are kind of on the hot seat right now. It is starting to warm up here. This is the very first one that she posted, I think, last night around 8:53 Eastern. League sources have indicated to me some personnel who are already preparing for their departure with advanced conversations. One, way earlier in the year than you think, as they've given sources the impression they didn't want to stay a while ago. Excuse me. Backroom conversations already in gear, and then this is actually the follow up to her tweet. Like an hour or so later, I was given a list of 3 head coaches, 4 pending head coaches, 2 GMs, and 3 pending GMs, depending on how the season goes, on that follow-up tweet on how many people, personnel, and the head coaches are in danger of losing their jobs. There are a couple of names that are a bit surprising given coaching accolades in postseason games. This is a time of the year when sources start talking about pending vacancies. I already tweeted about the Jacksonville 2 days ago. Of course, Jacksonville got their ass kicked today here in Detroit.
That was a score. Yeah, that was a scoreagami, as Scott Hansen likes to point out, a score that's never been seen before in the NFL, 52-6. And again, watching that through Red Zone, Stephen. Again, I don't know what Jacksonville's doing. Trevor Lawrence is regret. He's just not a good quarterback. And Mike Florio,
right. He didn't play today. It was Mac Jones, I believe.
It was Mac Jones. It was just really poor effort. And let me just tell you this: there was Mike Florio, before you go into that, said that even though it looks like the Jacksonville, he reported that the Jacksonville GM is going to stay, likely that Trent Baalke is probably going to stay, but then he would probably have to be paired with Bill Belichick, of all people. That now we all know that Belichick has worked usually is a lone wolf and likes to work by himself. But that would be an interesting combination. We see Belichick and Baalke, and having to work with Trevor Lawrence. I don't see that happening. But go ahead with what else Josina Anderson had to say about it.
So my feeling was on this tweet, I was thinking, the part about, she said, there are a couple of names that are a bit surprising given coaching accolades in post games. And I've been thinking about maybe your Cleveland Browns, because of Kevin Stefanski. He took the team to 2 Super Bowls in a less than ideal situations. He took the team in 2020 and then 2021 and 2022 losing seasons. Last year, they went to, the playoffs with Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback, and Flacco now looks like every bit as old as he is now, compared to last year. So I'm automatically thinking, okay, that's another guy that looks to be, the surprising, coach that could be gone. Maybe not now, or maybe before the end of the year, but maybe as soon as the season is over. And of course, that could also mean that general manager Andrew Berry could be also on the hot seat as well. If you read this tweet now, Ken, does that kind of give you an impression that maybe she's also talking about your Browns in that sense?
I wouldn't be surprised, Stephen. Stefanski has had his hands tied all season long in a bad situation with Deshaun Watson. He's been forced to say things which I don't think he feels is true. He's in a situation where the ownership wanted to play Deshaun Watson. I don't know why, but now they're in a situation with Jameis Winston, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's made a scapegoat for the season. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know, what else is going to go on with the Haslams as they continue to try to push a new stadium outside of Cleveland. So I wouldn't be surprised. Sometimes when you're going to try and make that effort, you try and change your coach and maybe even your front office. It's because you want to get that momentum going, but you also have to put a good product on the field. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's one possibility that she's talking about. Jacksonville might be the other as well.
Well, I think Kevin, excuse me. I think at this point, Doug Peterson is probably fired either tonight or maybe first thing in the morning. I think the noise is too loud, and I think Peterson today after the game, he's kind of resigned to the fact that he's on his way out in one way or the other. And
Right.
I think that is definitely happening. I think within the next 12 to 24 hours for sure. I do believe that my Bears, Matt Eberflus, and general manager Ryan Poles is kind of on the hot seat there as well. Ryan Poles is probably looking like he's going to go down with Matt Eberflus, who he hired and kept for another year when they could have started a clean slate, and just basically Ryan Poles is looking more like another George McCaskey pawn for keeping a defensive coach or a coach on the hot seat with pairing it with a rookie quarterback. And instead of differentiating himself, now he puts himself squarely on the hot seat together with Matt Eberflus. So, like I said earlier, I'm totally okay with, both of them getting fired together, because obviously they're represented by the same agent. And obviously there's somewhat of a cronyism that's involved in, maybe Ryan Poles has compromised himself to a position in such ways. So I think that's another, both of our teams, I think it wouldn't surprise me if she's mentioning about it. I think she's definitely clearly talking about the Jets right now. They've already fired, their head coach, Robert Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich, the interim coach. Yeah, that they haven't done any better. They just lost to the Indianapolis Colts and Anthony Richardson today, of course. Mm-hmm. I think the Colts, and speaking of the Colts, I think the Colts are also even in the mix as well. If they don't make the playoffs, this would be their fifth straight, postseason miss. Chris Ballard talks a good game. He's suffering. He's fought. He managed to get himself out of the troubles. Dealing with Jim Irsay, but I don't know if Jim Irsay's patience is, wearing thin, obviously, with the Shane Steichen and then the quarterback consternation of Joe Flacco back to Anthony Richardson. And, ironically, they won with Richardson today. So that's another team I think could be in the real hot seat there. Maybe the Raiders, with Antonio Pierce, they suffered another loss today. With the offensive coordinator changes and everything, just how much of a leash is Antonio Pierce is going to get. And, with a new quarterback that they're expected to draft, do you want to make the same mistakes as the Bears did? Brian Dable and Joe Shane, obviously the questions about Daniel Jones's future and extending them to that big contract is a big albatross that I don't think neither man can overcome there too. So there are some, interesting names out there that is certainly linked to the Josina Anderson's report. So I think we're going to see more and more names starts to pop up as to, who are in danger. And I'll be honest, I think Kevin Stefanski, if he's fired, I think he could definitely get another coaching gig somewhere, head coaching gig. And I think, if the Bears want to hire him, I think I wouldn't be, too shocked to see, Stefanski hired as a head coach, because obviously he was an offensive coordinator with the Minnesota Vikings. He knows the division, he knows the teams, and, everything. So I think you could do a lot worse than hiring some first-time, unproven coach than Kevin Stefanski. But, we shall see. All right.
Yeah.
Looking at the other. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Stefanski, I like I said, he is a good coach. And as you mentioned, he did take the Browns to 2 playoff appearances in his tenure. He's not going to get there this year, but he is a good coach. He's a good planner. You'll notice that he's very good on the very first drive. The script of the first 10 plays are always very good. But it's then after that Stefanski has issues with. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think he's going to survive the season, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland moves on after this season.
All right. Looking at the other scores today, obviously the big one, of course, is the Bills beating the Chiefs. The Chiefs suffered their first loss of the season. I have to tell you, Ken, this is might make things a little more easy or interesting, I should say, for the NFL and the rest of the season now that the Chiefs have suffered their first loss of the season. The Bills have had a hard time beating the Chiefs in the regular season as well as in the playoffs as well the last few years. It's a huge win for the Bills, for their psyche. Obviously once the playoff comes around, wherever the Bears host the Chiefs or the vice versa, that's a totally different animal. But I think the fact that the Chiefs suffered their very first loss up in Buffalo today kind of speaks volume. I think that the Bills, Josh Allen really, outplayed Patrick Mahomes himself. That 4th and 2 on that last, drive where he just took off and scored on a game-winning touchdown to put them up, by 2 scores. And I think Buffalo really, proved themselves, and that maybe, it's not the Chiefs completely running away undefeated. So I think with about 7 games still left in the season, I think, it's an interesting finish to the, to the race for the top seed, not just in the AFC, but overall. And I think today's game just made things more interesting for the NFL.
Yeah, I there's no doubt about that. I mean, when you have the Buffalo, you want to have an atmosphere like you had today, kind of like a playoff atmosphere going into the week before Thanksgiving, Stephen. That was a really fantastic, a couple weeks before Thanksgiving, I should say. I got to say that was for Buffalo to make their play like they did today. They were very motivated, I have to say. And Kansas City has been living on the edge for the last few weeks. We've seen that before. They should have been beaten by Denver last week. They should have lost a few times this season. They've gotten by. But today, Patrick Mahomes made some interestingly bad decisions, too, throwing a couple of bad interceptions in the first quarter, trying to avoid a sack. He just didn't seem to be the regular self today. And, I think the Buffalo Bills came in very highly motivated, and they got the job done. So I was very impressed by the Bills. The fact is now that if, let's say, the Bills now suffer another loss and they remain, but let's say both remain with 2 losses, the Bills would get home field and would be able to get that number 1 seed over Kansas City if they both remain. If, let's say, Kansas City suffered another loss this season and Buffalo stayed with 2 losses. So I'm very impressed by the fact that the Bills are playing a lot better. When they were earlier this season, when they were 2-2, Stephen, everyone was saying, well, the Bills are obviously regressing. Well, they have not. And obviously they're showing the class of the AFC East right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see that this game uplifts them to the fact that I'm not going to say they're going to go undefeated for the rest of the year, but I would not be surprised if they don't lose maybe just 1 more game, because in that division is very soft. And you see how the Jets today have no guts, Stephen. They fell behind Indianapolis. They didn't have a first down for a very long time against the Colts today. And then the Colts with Anthony Richardson, a quarterback they didn't want to play for the rest of the season, but Joe Flacco regressed as well, as you talked about him earlier, looking all his old self right now. Anthony Richardson drove the Colts down to the game-winning score, and of course Aaron Rodgers has nothing. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bills, if they can run the table at least in the division, and at least be able to get maybe even that first round.
Top seed in the AFC, pretty much. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised at that at all and get that first round bye. So, but as you well know, the number one seed, only the number one seed gets the first round bye. The playoff week bye going into the divisional round. So, if the Bills can, that's got to be a big incentive for that, and have everything run through Buffalo. That would be big for them. And, we got to see if they can do that. But like I said, the AFC East is pretty weak, although Miami won today over the Las Vegas Raiders. Tua Tagovailoa looked quite good today, threw a couple of touchdown passes, made some good decisions. He didn't have to worry about sliding today or running too much because the Raiders don't have much of a pass rush. So the Miami Dolphins won today going away against the Raiders team. And as you mentioned, Anthony Pierce, I don't know what's going on with that team. Pierce looked like a coach like on the upswing last year. It looks like he may have lost this team this year. So it's really too sad about the Raiders. I really was hoping a lot more from them this season. And of course, we talk about the New England Patriots where I live. They showed some promise against the Rams, but then Matthew Stafford and the Rams are just too good. Patriots kept it close for a little bit for the first half, but then Matthew Stafford took over in the second half, got things done. And I know that Drake May is looking like the real deal for the Patriots, but he's got some growing things to do. He made some very bad decisions today, and that's what happened. And the Los Angeles Rams won going away from Foxborough. And also, we cannot forget the CFL Grey Cup is going on right now. The Toronto Argonauts are taking on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That's taking place in Vancouver right now, and it's a good game right now. The Argonauts are leading the Blue Bombers 17-10 late in the third quarter. That game is on CBS Sports Network if you want to watch some good Canadian football. The CFL with the Grey Cup. It's always fun for me to watch. I always enjoy watching the Grey Cup, especially watching the Canadian acts. Unfortunately, they had Nickelback. No, they had the Jonas Brothers at the halftime. I know. Overall, the CFL, especially when they go to their last game, especially when they go to the playoffs, it's a lot of fun. Watching three downs and watching their rules, a little bit different than watching the NFL, but it's a fun game to watch. And if you want to see that game after we finish here, when we sign off very soon, that's something to watch. And then you can watch Sunday Night Football after that. But overall, anything else you want to mention over in Week 11, Stephen?
No, I just say that the top seed in the AFC just got a lot more interesting now. With the Chiefs only having one less loss than the Bills. Certainly the Chiefs are getting their injured players back just in time. Juju Smith-Schuster was back. Isaiah Pacheco is also, I believe, returning shortly. Can the Chiefs run the table and win the rest of the game? Or are they going to have them, slip ups against like we saw with the, they came close to losing their first game last week against against the Broncos. If it wasn't for the block kick, there's going to be games like that for either teams. There are, the margin of error is thin now. Neither teams cannot afford to lose anymore. If the Chiefs, God forbid, lose, obviously, because two losses, two losses, the Bills get the home field because they've already beaten the Chiefs today. So the rest of the AFC, is basically predicated to the Chiefs and the Bills, how each do. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of, players on both sides looking at the scores of each teams as it gets closer and closer to the end of the season when the playoff seeds, start to come into the factor. So that's all I have to say for the Week 11. And let's kind of close out the other big topics over this week. It is the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson boxing exhibition, which shockingly, this was actually sanctioned in Texas. So this actually does count, I believe, as a loss for Iron Mike Tyson, who looked just as old and tired as his age, at 58 years old. And I'm going to be honest, Ken, I thought I really wanted to see Mike Tyson, beat the crap out of Jake Paul. And for the record, I didn't even watch this game. I don't have a Netflix account. I think a lot of people who got back into the Netflix after being out for a while, or maybe had Netflix account for such a long time, even well before, with the price increases and stuff like that, they stuck with the Netflix and still ended up watching this debacle. I saw a lot of people openly showing their regrets watching this fight. By the way, if you're watching this stream, thank you very much. Comment if you can, if you watch this, exhibition and your experience and what your feeling is, 48 hours later, and if you're feeling remorseful or not, if you can, before we close out this show. But obviously, the exhibition part was just a debacle itself, and the streaming part was even more of a disaster, Ken.
Yeah, well, I had what's interesting is that I was able to watch it without mostly buffering. I had it on Apple TV, and Timothy Burke, who has an account on Blue Sky, noticed that people who were watching Netflix on Apple TV didn't have that issue because of the latency. Other people who were watching it on other places had a lot of issues, and of course, we covered that on Awful Announcing. I will say that the undercard was much better, Stephen. The two fights that I saw were on before that were much better.
Serrano, the female fight, right? Taylor Serrano.
Yeah, Serrano, Katie Martin. And as a matter of fact, I listen to, when I wake up, I listen to BBC Radio 5 Live every morning, and they were talking about Katie Martin, who's from Ireland. She hadn't fought for almost a year going into the fight against Gina Serrano, and of course, she did show some ring rust. But Serrano, she, at least to me, in looking, looked like she won that fight. But I will say that in regards to that overall, the streaming experience for most people wasn't very good. There was a lot of buffering. People had a lot of issues trying to watch the fight. I had a couple of issues overall, but for the most part, the Netflix app on Apple TV was very stable. I was able to watch the undercard without any interruption. I did see a couple of buffering instances during the fight itself, during the Paul Tyson fight. But as you mentioned, Mike Tyson he was 58 years old. He looked old. It kind of reminded me of the Muhammad Ali Trevor Berbick fight back in 1980. That was Muhammad Ali's last fight too. And the one thing about older boxers will tell you is that when you get old and you try to call on yourself to throw that punch, you just don't have it. And of course, that's why boxing is a younger person's game, Stephen. And Jake Paul could have easily hurt Mike Tyson really badly. I think he chose not to. Otherwise,
I guess you call that a business decision.
Yeah, I definitely. Jake Paul could have easily hurt Mike Tyson. He could have punched him at any time, but they chose to dance around the ring it was 2-minute rounds for 8 rounds. It was 16 minutes. We can't get back. But overall, I think the fact is that Netflix opted not to charge extra, and I think that was good. I don't think Netflix is in trouble, but I will think, Stephen, that they are going to have some issues with the NFL coming up next month, when they have 2 big games. I think this was an experiment for that because they have 2 Christmas games. One of them involves the Kansas City Chiefs, and people want to watch that game because, they're going to be coming off of Christmas dinner. They're going to be home after being with their relatives, and they're going to want to watch football on that Wednesday night, on Christmas night. We're going to see if there's going to be any streaming issues. And another thing is that in 2 months, WWE Raw is going to be starting And that's going to be live also. So this is an experiment for this. I'm sure was an experiment for the NFL streaming next month and for the WWE in 2 months when it takes over the Raw contract. So I think Netflix is going to learn from this. I think they've got to realize is that they got to see what worked with Apple TV that didn't work on the other smart TVs and other set-top boxes like Roku and other places that have Netflix as an app, because what worked with Apple certainly did not work for other platforms. So Netflix has got to work on that, and they got to get better servers. Otherwise, for the NFL, and the NFL requires. Now, we've seen Amazon work this out very well. Amazon usually does not have any trouble with Thursday Night Football. We have not seen any issues. ESPN Plus doesn't have issues. Peacock didn't have any issues. If Netflix has one iota of trouble, like they did on Friday night, Stephen, with the boxing, then you're going to be hearing it a lot, and you're going to be seeing that a lot especially on our side on Awful Announcing, because we covered it. I think that there's going to be a lot of yelling, but I do think that Netflix is going to get that ready, especially for Christmas night, because it's going to probably be its highest audience, especially in the United States.
If you've been thinking about buying Netflix stock, I would probably put that on hold until otherwise. Maybe there are a lot of people who might be jaded from this experience and may ended up dumping some of the stocks. That's understandable. We're not necessarily advocating for neither of those things. Because we're not, we have no share whatsoever on the stock of Netflix as a whole, company. But you said it best. This is a learning moment. Certainly, they have some time to work out its kinks. With the streaming service, there's always a buffering issue where you're maybe like one play behind in terms of football. When you're doing streaming services of any kind compared to the live TV. So, that's something that needs to be worked. This is a problem for any streaming services moving forward. I'm sure other streaming services are probably laughing at Netflix, not just for the fight itself, but for the streaming issues. But this could easily be happening to companies like Paramount Plus, HBO Plus, ESPN Plus, etc., etc. So maybe this is something that the whole industry has to learn, and then make their product better if they're wanting to make sure that they can retain customers moving forward. Because these small things can eventually make their viewing experience, terrible, and that is likely to stick into your head more so than anything else. And as streaming becomes more and more mainstream, it's going to be very, very hard for some of the companies to stay afloat in the business. So these small things, again, could eventually make the difference between you making a profit, I should say, versus you continue to lose subscribers and then maybe forced to either, merge with another company or just basically go out of business.
Well, yeah, we'll see about that. I mean, Netflix is they're in no danger of going out of the business, Stephen. They have a worldwide reputation, they have a worldwide audience, so I wouldn't be surprised that if like I said, the NFL should go off without a hitch, because they're going to get better servers, and they're going to make sure that it works. The NFL is going to make sure of that. We've seen that, like I said, Amazon with Prime Video, no issues whatsoever with the Thursday Night Football. ESPN Plus has had issues. Peacock has not had issues either. Maybe they did with their first stream, but pretty much for the playoff game, the wildcard playoff game back in January in Kansas City against Miami, they didn't really have any issues. So I don't expect to see Netflix. I think Netflix will definitely be ready, and especially for the WWE in 2 months, because they're not going to put up with that. So anyway, So we'll see about that, and it's going to be fun to watch. And we'll see what happens next month when the NFL comes around with a bigger audience, and we'll see. Because they said they had 60 million people watch, and I think that was just the United States alone. So that's a very big audience. You're talking about NFL championship weekend numbers. That's how big it was. So. But let's see how they do with the NFL on Christmas night.
All right. On that note, we're going to end our live streaming tonight. I appreciate everybody joining us on this Sunday night, fresh off the NFL Week 11 schedule. We'll be back hopefully next Sunday once again, probably the same time to talk about the NFL Week 12. The college football playoff races are starting to probably take shape now. Probably close to the end. There might be some coaching changes in the NFL. Maybe Doug Peterson might be out the door as soon as tomorrow in Jacksonville. Could there be more coaches on their way out? We'll see what happens. Join us again, hopefully next Sunday night, same time on the Double A Team podcast live stream edition. For Stephen Nagishi, Ken Fang, thank you for watching us. And Ken, any final words?
Yeah, I just want to say that thank you for watching. We appreciate it. I like to think that this will probably be our permanent time slot from now on, from Sunday night to 8:00. We'll talk. Stephen and I will talk more about that off the air. But this works out for me because I'm usually off Sunday and Monday nights. So we'll see what happens. But we like to thank you for watching. Again, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is at Fangs Bites. And under the Double A Team also there. And also too, I am now on Blue Sky. So look under fangsbites.bsky.social. That's basically where you just do a search for Fangs Bites. You can find me there. I'm going to do most of my content there rather over on X. I'll still have a presence on X, but I think most of my content will be there. And also I'll be starting a Substack. My first column goes up tomorrow. It will eventually be a subscription, but tomorrow's column will be free. Well, one thing we didn't talk about, Stephen, was the fact that Inside the NBA will be on ESPN after next season. So we'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about that as well. But my first Substack will go up tomorrow. It'll be free for everybody. So look at Blue Sky and X for that. And thank you very much for watching. And we'll see you next week. Whether it be Sunday night or whatever night, we'll let you definitely know through our social channels.